And as always, this video is only going to get crazier as it goes on. The Carrington event. It's a warm summer's night on August 28th, 1859. The sun had only just set, and this night was supposed to be like any other. Typically, after the sun sets, the sky only gets darker and darker. However, on this night, the sky was illuminated like never before. Eyewitnesses report that the sky appeared to be illuminated from the heavens, and others mentioned how the sky was a deep red as if it were engulfed by a wildfire. The night sky was so bright, in fact, that it actually awoke gold miners working in the Rocky Mountains, and they not only woke up but began their workday in the middle of the night because they assumed the sun had risen. And it's reported that in New York you could even read the newspaper at midnight due to how bright the night sky was. With this being said, it begs the question, what was in the night sky? Was it an asteroid? Was it a wildfire? Well, some of you might have already guessed that it was the Aurora Borealis. But these were no regular northern lights. The lights that were seen in the night sky on August 28th were visible for nearly a week. But it's not just the duration that's impressive. These lights were visible globally. Not only was the aurora visible from the North and South Poles, but it was also visible through North America, South America, Cuba, Hawaii, Japan, China, and even New Zealand. But this aurora wasn't just a pretty light show. Although it was an interesting spectacle to witness at night, during the day, this aurora was wreaking havoc on the rather simple technology that existed, most notably telegraphs. Because of the geomagnetic induced current from the electromagnetic field, telegraphs all across the world failed. But not only did they fail, they even shocked the operators. Telegraphs in some locations were sparking, breaking, and curiously, in some locations, telegraph operators were disconnecting their batteries from the telegraphs, and the telegraphs would still work without power. There's even a recorded conversation between two telegraph operators in Boston and Portland, who both disconnected the batteries from their telegraphs, but were still able to have a 2-hour-long conversation. And while this is interesting, it doesn't necessarily sound apocalyptic. And well, you'd be right, and that's because the Carrington event was caused by a massive solar flare, an event that is typically pretty harmless to humans. However, I wanted to mention it first in this video for 2 reasons. 1, because it's the most tame entry on this list we're going to discuss, and 2, because it's extremely interesting to theorize what would have happened if this solar storm happened in the modern day, a day where we rely so heavily on technology. And luckily, we don't have to speculate, because in June of 2013, a joint venture from researchers at Lloyd's of London and the Atmospheric and Environmental Research Committee used real data from the Carrington event to estimate the cost of a similar event in the modern day. And what they estimated was that if the Carrington event took place in 2013, it would have cost in the US alone $600 billion to $2.6 trillion in damages, which at the time would have ranged from roughly 3 to 15% of the annual GDP for the entire country. But numbers aside, what would this look like for humans? And the reality is scary. Most of the world would experience one of the biggest blackouts of all time. And this blackout alone would cause major issues, such as lack of communications, lack of transportation, lack of refrigeration, and so much more. Traffic lights would go down, hospitals would lose power, air traffic control would lose communication with planes, grocery stores would be empty, looting and riots would begin. Like, seriously, just imagine if the world lost electricity for even 2 weeks straight. Now imagine that going on for months, and maybe even years. So much would be going wrong. Besides just that, all banking and purchases would be unavailable, supply chains would basically completely halt, and the economy and likely civilization would be set back hundreds of years, if not eliminated entirely. And